So I'm starting at white blood cells because it was a nice starting point. So white blood cells are better known as leukocytes. Leukocytes are the only component that are complete cells, so they have mitochondria and a nucleus and Golgi and all of those things that we've talked about when it comes to cells. They exist in much smaller quantities than red blood cells, about 5,000 per cubic millimeter instead of 5 million, so much, much smaller. And their job is to work as immune cells. So they help to protect the body from infectious microorganisms. In order to do that, many of them are phagocytic, which means they can eat up those microorganisms and then present the antigens to the other immune cells that can then tag and destroy them. So leukocytes are broken into two big groups, granulocytes and agranulocytes. Granulocytes are grainy looking. These include the neutrophils, which we'll talk more about neutrophils in a minute. Eosinophils, which help protect us from parasites, like worms and stuff. And then basophils, which are responsible for histamine and inflammatory responses. All of these granulocytes are phagocytic, which means they can eat invading cells, engulf them, digest them, show off their antigens. Neutrophils are the one group of granulocytes that we're going to kind of focus on. Remember that there are picture questions on the test where you'll have to match the blood cell type to its image, so neutrophils. They are the most numerous type of white blood cell, and they are what protect us from bacteria. So we come into contact with lots of bacteria, some of it good, some of it less good, and it is neutrophils that protect us from that not good bacteria. Agranulocytes are not granular, and these are the lymphocytes. There are two types of lymphocytes. You might remember them from back in your biology days. The two major types are T cells and B cells. T cells are what go throughout the body and they attack the foreign cells that have been tagged by the antibodies. So if you think back in biology, a macrophage or something eats the invader, presents the antigens, the B cells recognize the antigen, and then check and figure out if there's an antibody already to that antigen. If there is, then they send out these little flags that mark that invader so that the T cells can then come and sort of seek and destroy the invader. The other type of agranulocyte is the monocyte. It is the largest of the leukocytes, like physically, it's the biggest. It has a purple staining nucleus, and it's sort of U-shaped. Sure it is. And the cool thing about the monocytes is that they actually leave the circulation, so they leave the blood, and they enter tissue, like muscle tissue, for instance, and they are what become the macrophages. So macrophage means big eater, so these are also phagocytic. So they are also phagocytic. Just like the granulocytes, the neutrophils, the basophils, and the eosinophils. So leukocyte disorders We are just going to focus on leukemias. Leukemia is a cancer involving white blood cells. So immature white blood cells are found in the blood in all types of leukemia. Remember, cancers generally are disorders of cell division. So these mutated, immature white blood cells reproduce and reproduce and reproduce and reproduce, and eventually takes over the bone marrow. So the bone marrow is not able to make the correct proportions of the different types of healthy, functioning white blood cells. Instead, there's just this overrun population of these harmful leukocytes. Here you can see a picture. This is healthy blood. So remember, there should be a much higher proportion of red blood cells compared to white blood cells. And here would be from someone with leukemia. There's a much, much, much higher proportion of these white blood cells than there should be. And so the blood is just not able to function properly. Bone marrow transplant can be a treatment for some kinds of leukemia because it takes out those producers of precursor cells and hopefully puts in new ones that are then able to produce the proper type and number of leukocytes, healthy leukocytes. Okay. Platelets are fragments of cells that help to function in the clotting mechanism. So you can see, sorry, this is so fuzzy. It looks better on mine. You can see here these little bitty bits are platelets, and here's kind of zoomed in. You can see platelets there as well. So blood clotting occurs in a series of steps. We're, of course, simplifying it kind of a great deal. But in general, there's an injury that occurs. So here you can see some sort of a hole in the blood vessel. It could be at the end here. It could be, up in the top. And the first thing that happens is that the muscle walls that line the outside of the blood vessel spasm and contract. So you can see they're making the hole much smaller. Then platelets go to the area and sort of get all jammed in there and make what's called the platelet plug. And then after the platelet plug is formed, there's this cascade of protein steps. You get these fibrin fibers that help to fill and seal the plug. Okay, this picture is a little bit gross, so it's a blood clotting picture. Avert your eyes if you need to. So you can see a big clot on the outside there. So again, in the coagulation events, normally takes about 3 to 6 minutes for blood to clot, depending on the size of the wound and things like that. It requires calcium and vitamin K, along with lots of other proteins and things, to kind of all come in and be part of this clotting cascade. There are many disorders of coagulation. Probably the most well-known one is hemophilia, of which there are different types. And different types of hemophilia there are mutations and sort of different steps of the clotting cascade. And so the blood is not able to form clots in the same way. Okay, almost done. Next, we have human blood groups. So, people have different blood types, and what the blood type refers to is the antigen, the proteins that the red blood cells have on their outer surface. So the antigens are made up of protein, and they are unique to each individual. And after a transfusion, they can be recognized as foreign by the other cells, which is why blood typing is so important. So here you can see blood type A has A antigens or A proteins, right? Blood type B has B antigens or B proteins. Blood type AB has both of those on the outside, and then blood type O has neither type of antigen around it. So people with type A blood can get type A blood from other people, provided that the other factors also align. But they couldn't get type B blood because their body wouldn't recognize it. We tend to simplify, and we simplify a lot, but we tend to simplify blood type into like A, B, and O, and then maybe RH factor, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But really, there are over 30 varieties of naturally occurring antigens, so naturally occurring proteins that are going to occur on the outside of cells. So we're very much simplifying. But if you worked in a transfusion lab or something, then you would start to look at some of these other factors as well, maybe not just A, B, and O, to make sure that it was really the best match. Okay, so I talked about this a second ago. Just to reiterate, blood type A has A antigens. Blood type B has B antigens. Blood type AB has both. Blood type O has none. And antigens, you can think of them, like I said, as being proteins. They're like markers on the outside of the red blood cell. Antigen, you might remember, stands for antibody generating. So, if you are a person with type A blood, what that means is that you have naturally occurring anti-B antibodies in your blood plasma. Okay? If you're type B, you have naturally occurring anti-A in your plasma. So your body recognizes, if you're type A, your body recognizes type B as being bad, not you. If you have type B blood, your body recognizes type A as being not you and bad. If you are type O, then you have anti-A and anti-B. So your body would recognize both of those as being foreign and not good. If you're type AB, then you don't have any of those antibodies, and so your body will not recognize any other blood as being foreign and not good. So that's why it is so bad to get the wrong blood type, because a person with type A blood, if they were to receive type B blood, their body would immediately start to mark it as foreign, and the other blood cells would do their seek and destroy and break it down. You get what's called agglutination, which is sort of clumpy and clotty and gross. It's very bad to get the wrong blood type. So we talked just a little bit ago about type A, B, and O. There is also the positive and negative factor, which you might also be aware of. So in the U.S., 85% of the population is Rh positive. If an Rh negative person receives Rh positive blood, you get anti-Rh antibodies. A second exposure will result in that agglutination, that bad reaction where your body will fight against the blood as if it's a foreign agent, foreign substance. So it's similar to the A, B, and O, just a different protein factor. So Rh factor can potentially cause, like I said, the same sort of transfusion effect that getting the wrong letter blood type could have. It can be particularly dangerous with moms and babies. So if a mom is Rh negative and her baby is Rh positive, remember Rh positive is the most common type in the US, so it happens with some frequency. During delivery or something, the mom can come in contact with the baby's Rh positive red blood cells. That causes the mom to make anti-Rh antibodies. Okay, so she recognizes that the blood is foreign, and her body prepares to fight it off next time. So that can cause those Rh antibodies to get into the baby's blood because moms share some of their immune functions with baby. And so that can cause the baby's blood's RBCs to be destroyed. So the mom's immune system starts attacking the baby's red blood cells effectively. Not on purpose, it just recognizes them as foreign. So there is a drug that's called Rh immunoglobulin that helps to prevent it, so the mom doesn't make the antibodies and attack the baby cells. So if you are a woman who is Rh negative, it's really important to be aware of that in the future. Here, so we talked a little bit about jaundice earlier when we were talking about red blood cells and bilirubin breakdown. So after babies are born, a lot of times they have a high red blood cell count that gets broken down, or birth is traumatic, so they might have like a bruise or something from that process. And when red blood cells are broken down, one of the products is called bilirubin. And bilirubin can build up in the skin and cause jaundice. You can see this little guy is a little bit yellow. And then to break down the bilirubin, some of it gets excreted through the digestive tract. It gets pooped out, basically. The other thing that helps break it down is phototherapy, light therapy. So, for instance, this guy might have been under what's called the Billy light, and then that helps to break down the bilirubin. You can excrete it into his diaper, and then you can see that now he's much less yellow. And then here's like what it might look like for a baby to be under the Billy light. They have one that kind of looks like a little, it makes them look like a glowworm. It's just like a little paddle of light that they kind of swaddle with them, or they have these full big lights, and you can see the baby has the little baby sunglasses to help protect their eyes, because those lights, I can vouch, are extremely bright, but that helps them get rid of the bilirubin from any red blood cell breakdown and get rid of the jaundice. And that concludes blood types in our hematology lecture. So if you have any questions, make sure you ask before the quiz whenever you need to take that. Yeah, good luck.